Welcome to the Informed Pregnancy and Parenting Podcast. I'm your host, pregnancy-focused chiropractor, Dr. Elliot Berlin. My guest today is an actress, producer, and entrepreneur based in Mexico City. She was with us on the podcast all the way back in episode number 143 to tell us about her first pregnancy and birth, as well as her then brand new eco-friendly personal care company, My Natural. Today, she's back to fill us in on some incredible updates. A lot has happened since we spoke to her last. Marianna Burelli, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Such a great pleasure to be here.
Last time I spoke to you, I think was probably, I don't know, months before the pandemic broke out.
You're right. We were oblivious then. We
We're
had no
oblivious.
idea what was about to happen.
We were just partying within 2 feet or even 1 feet of other people. We could see each other's faces. Not that it matters for me, but
I was probably spitting on your hands or something, right?
I don't remember that, but you could have been, and I wouldn't have been freaked out.
No, on your microphone for
Oh, and the
sure.
microphone. Yeah. Now we have the
Yeah,
masks. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
then we had, after that, everything went crazy. And then I lost touch with everybody, including you. And then I turn around, and after all the dust settles, you have this incredible story that you've lived, and I didn't know anything about it. So I'm here to learn and hear and share at the same time. I'm glad you're back.
Yeah, thank you. So exciting to be back to my
Okay, so
favorite place for
thanks.
pregnancy.
So your first birth was also kind of interesting. Just as a recap, you had a breech baby that we were able to make some space for and moved into a head down position. But then you wanted to have an unmedicated birth, but at the hospital.
Correct.
And you did
That's
it.
right. And I did it. It was really beautiful.
And it was beautiful. And it's like, that episode, that first one, 143, is pretty popular because there's not that many stories that we have on here. Usually you either have the home birth that's all natural and wooey and unmedicated, or you have the hospital birth that's a bit more sterile and medicated. But yours was the in-between,
Yeah, mine was the hybrid.
the hybrid. So before we get up to the most recent events, how was your past 4 years?
Oh my God, it's been beautiful. We moved back to Mexico a year ago. And yeah, loads happened. Work here. I first came because I was doing a TV show and I thought that I was going to stay for 6 months. And then those 6 months became a year and now a year and a half. So
Oh, wow. And were you producing, acting, both?
I was acting in this TV show and I'm right now producing a movie that hopefully will get to set the beginning of next year or end of this year, depending on funding. But yeah, and I just started another show that will be seen on Netflix at some point next year. So yeah, it's been busy and I had twins also.
Okay, there we go. Spoiler alert.
Oh no.
Mama had twins. No, that's fine. I mean, that's what we're here for.
Yep.
These twins. So I want to get into that journey a little bit. At that time, were you looking to get pregnant?
Yeah, I started getting kind of like attempting to get pregnant in 2022. At the end of 2022, I found out that I was pregnant at the same time as my father passed, which was kind of an intense period of time in my life.
You found out both at
Um,
the same time?
well, pretty much. I flew to Spain once I found out that my father had passed. He had been sick for a few months, and we kind of knew this was going to happen at some point soon. And that day always arrives, and although you think that you're kind of ready for it, you're never ready for it. So we flew to Spain, and while I was there for my father's cremation and, all of this, I had a pregnancy test done and I found out that I was pregnant.
Oh, wow. In Spain.
Yeah, very intense. So that was kind of the happy news in the middle of something, a very difficult situation and a big goodbye. And then very soon we found out that the baby had a malformation in her heart. And doctors told us that the rate of survival of embryos with that were kind of very slim to none. So basically, the baby was incompatible with life.
How many weeks
Intense.
when you figured that out?
I figured that out when I was after the structural, which was 12 weeks. I had a medical abortion on week 13. It was really, really, really tough, much tougher than I ever expected.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Um, Thank you. So that was that. And then after a few months, that was in December 2022. And after a few months, around April, we were like, okay, we're ready to start again. So we did. And up until then, every time we tried to get pregnant, we got pregnant. And this time didn't work that way. We tried to get pregnant and we used hormone trackers, didn't work. We did the whole, calendar, when was my period, all of that. I found it incredibly, I don't want to say boring, but it's hard to kind of like get to business on a day, specifically on, ovulating. Let's do it right now. It's
Right.
kind of not so great.
Where are you?
For
Come home.
Yeah, come home. We need to get to business. So that didn't work for us at all. And I was kind of worried that I wasn't getting pregnant and months were passing. So we went to a top fertility doctor here in Mexico and he asked me to do some blood work before the consultation. So I did. And when I saw him, he basically had really bad news for me. He said, look, your hormone levels are on the floor and you barely have any eggs left. You have endometriosis. He also broke that news to me, which I had never been diagnosed with ever before.
Interesting.
Yeah. So suddenly I was facing a whole new scenario. And because of my low egg count, I wasn't even a candidate for IVF.
Oh
Not that
man.
I wanted to do IVF, but that's what he actually said to me. And I was shocked. Dr. Berlin, I was shocked. I was like, what? What's going on? Like my life, how I knew it, totally changed.
What age are you at that point?
I just turned 40.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm 41.
Oh, well, obviously somehow you got pregnant. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, somehow I got pregnant. Yeah, so I was just about to turn 40 then. And he kept talking about my age and how when women turn 40, things got a lot harder and that I should have gotten my eggs frozen and, all of those things. And so I walked out of his office feeling devastated and got into the elevator. And my husband said, do you believe him? And I said, well, if I believe him, then that means that I have zero chance. He also said there is a chance for you to choose like an egg from an egg donor.
A
It,
donor egg, yeah.
uh-huh. So you can start thinking about that because I don't think you'll be able to have your babies from your eggs. However, Roberto's sperm is on point. He emphasized
Hmm.
that,
How'd that
and
make you feel?
that was great. I was like, oh, this is getting better by the minute. Yeah, sometimes doctors really they don't have common sense. Anyway, he didn't. So I walked out thinking, okay, I'm not gonna go down this route. I'm not gonna check on an egg donor. I'm not gonna do any of this. And I said to my husband, are you happy having one child? And he said, I'm absolutely happy having only one child. I was like, great. That's all I needed to know because I'm not going to go down this route of fertility and doing all these things that these guys, presenting to me, but I'm going to do my own stuff. And he said, perfect. I'm going to do something much more, alternative. And so I started to do some meditations and I started training for a marathon and shaman from a village in Namibia, who is a friend of my friend, saw a picture of me and I asked my friend to ask him what he thought. And he said, look, I think she's perfectly fine. I think she seems really stressed out. And he sent some herbs, like some herbal teas that I should take. So I took the teas and I meditated like religiously twice a day. And in those meditations, I visualized myself being pregnant, having another baby, being fertile, being healthy, my ovaries having eggs, etc. Right?
At that time, are you
Uh,
still tracking your ovulation?
no, no, no. I totally dropped all that. I relaxed. I was like, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to have sex whenever I feel like it, whenever he feels like it, as business were before. Because you know what I think happens? Women's brains start getting really like obsessed with the idea of getting pregnant. So you have once a month the opportunity to get pregnant and you really go for it and you're really obsessed about it. And I think that that state of mind wasn't doing me any favors. Was
No,
actually,
it's a form of fight or flight. So your
yeah,
system
yeah.
is so jacked up that it's counterproductive.
Absolutely. You're in a state where I don't think anything can happen but run, like protect yourself from danger because you're in that, like what you said. So I dropped everything and I was just taking these teas and I was meditating and visualizing and enjoying the fact that I was actually meditating every day, twice a day. And it almost became more about the pleasure of meditation rather than trying to become pregnant. It kind of shifted. And I said, okay, if by the 1st of December, I'm not pregnant, I'm going to start training for a marathon. We were all going to do a marathon in Rome.
Have
My
you done
brothers,
before?
no, never, but I've always run. But this time I was like, okay, I'm going to run marathon. And my three brothers, my husband, and I said, okay, let's do it. And there came December 1st, and I wasn't pregnant. So I was like, okay, I want to have the best watch, the best gear. So I really like got myself ready for this marathon and I started training like crazy. You really have to run. If you want to run a marathon, you really have to train hard. And we went on that Christmas, we went to Puglia with my family in law. And Roberto and I were running like half marathon, like on the 25th of December, feeling really fit and healthy. And then we went to Berlin with my family. And then there we ran maybe like 12 miles, like 20 kilometers at 10 o'clock at night, so cold in January, Berlin, running, feeling amazing. Anyway, so I get back to Mexico City on the 9th of January. And after a very long run, like I ran for maybe 2.5 hours as part of my training, I felt really sick. I was like, oh, I feel like a real athlete. I feel very tired, very sick. I must have run too much and kept feeling kind of weird. I was like, I'm going to entertain myself with this. Did a pregnancy test, came out positive. I was like, no, come on. This is
Wow.
a joke. I've been running like crazy. I don't even remember having sex that much, like this is kind of weird. So I did another one, positive. So I called Roberto. I'm like, baby, I think you have to come down here. And he got really excited. We went to the gynecologist, and in fact, the doctor goes, well, congratulations, you're pregnant. And his face was kind of, suspicious. And I could see two dots on the screen. And I said, okay, so if that's a baby, what's the other little white thing? And he was like, well, it seems like you're having twins, but don't get too excited. Don't get too excited because, they have how do you call it? The vanishing twin syndrome.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a thing, which means that one of the babies gets absorbed by the other really early on. So it could happen. So don't get excited. And I knew, I was like, these guys are not going anywhere. These two guys are staying. And yeah, so the
Wow.
pregnancy kind of,
I mean, how did that feel finding out you're having twins? Is this back in Mexico also?
this is back in Mexico. Yeah. With a new gynecologist. I didn't even have a gynecologist here. So it was a new guy who was incredible, a young guy. So when he said twins, I was like, what? Imagine I came like 3 months ago. Just been told that I had endometriosis, that I wasn't able to have babies, that I was too old to bear a child, and that I had no eggs. So I was like, okay, wait a minute. I have two eggs now.
Yeah, and they're
And
fertilized and they're growing.
and they're growing. So I turn around and I look at my husband and he's fully crying, like weeping. And I'm like,
Oh,
what are you crying about? Yeah, I found it harder to kind of digest. And I said to the doctor, well, I just want to let you know that I'm training for a marathon. And he was like, no, you were. I was like, no, 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 I am. He's like, no,
oh.
Mariana, you cannot run a marathon. I mean, you're pregnant with twins. So yeah,
Well,
so I run another marathon, which was becoming
yes,
the
a
mother.
totally different marathon.
It's a whole
Um,
different story.
let's like take a
Yeah.
little break there and then find out how your pregnancy was and what you had in mind for birth. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're talking to Marianna Burelli. Oh, wow. So I was just trying to go through all the emotions in my mind for a second. Your father passing, finding out that you are pregnant, finding out that the baby has a medical defect not compatible with life, having to have a medical abortion, and then finding out that your fertility window is closed, told to you seemingly with a sense of definitiveness, you're not going to have babies, becoming satisfied, making your peace with having one, and moving on to marathon training around the globe, and then finding out that not only you're pregnant, but you're having twins. So, you know, my mind goes in both directions. Twins, like, when do you start thinking about what this is going to be like in terms of a pregnancy and birth and raising two babies at the same time? And also, are you concerned that, I mean, you said you felt like these two are not going anywhere, but having had that other issue in the previous pregnancy, do you have any concerns about medical issues?
Sure. I mean, I was very much aware that I had to work harder with my mind not to go there, right? And trust the process and trust that what I was going through right now was a different story, you know? Well, for me, it was easy to kind of, go back to that sense of, oh my God, what if? So I had to kind of hold the horses and be, no, this is a different time. This is a different situation. This is a different story, you know? So it's a great mind spirit exercise to keep yourself away from the fears and allowing this new chapter to take place as a new chapter. But yeah, I have to confess that I had to really make an effort.
On the flip side, when did you start thinking about what this might look like in terms of carrying twins, delivering twins, raising twins?
Elliot, I actually had no idea until I actually gave birth to two boys. Like, you can try to imagine it, but it's so unusual to have two newborns. I mean, it's so different. It's so much work, so much work. And it's so beautiful at the same time. I wouldn't want it any other way. But it is so much work that even if I try to entertain the thought of me imagining, I would fail constantly.
What were the different trimesters like, the different phases of the pregnancy,
Mm.
and especially compared to having one?
Well, first trimester was pretty much the same as Sienna. I felt kind of sick, but I never actually threw up, never. It was just like, a sense of, oh, I don't want to eat anything. So I was the same thing. And also, I walked into this pregnancy being very fit. I was training for a marathon, so I had abs. Can you imagine? I had abs for the first time in my life. I had abs. And then they were about to go with a huge, massive belly. I
In
had really strong
contrast.
legs. Yeah, the contrast. Life laughing at me. I had really strong legs, so I was good. So first trimester was kind of pretty much the same. Second trimester, I was getting really worried because I was getting really big, really quick. And I was like, I still have 10 weeks to go. Like, this is scary. My belly was pretty huge. And I had already started feeling, the pressure in your pubic bone. The thing
Yeah.
that I felt with Sienna when I was 39 weeks,
Yeah.
I started feeling when I was 25. And
Oy.
I was like, I'm so screwed. Like, how am I going to even live the rest of this pregnancy? So I started visualizing 37 weeks. I was like, come on, we can do it. 37 weeks. And yeah, the last trimester was intense because I was unable to sleep.
What about
I
two
couldn't,
babies moving around inside you?
crazy. It's science fiction right in your belly. So weird. Because also you start getting to know their personalities. One of them, their names are Rio and Mateo. And Rio was a kicker. He was like, dun, dun, dun. And Mateo moved very kind of seldomly, but when he did, he turned. Like he was determined. He wasn't going to do like little kicks or punches. When he moved, he turned. So it was really intense. And they would kick each other at night. If I lay on one side, on the left side, I felt like I was squeezing and like stepping on Rio. And, it was hard. Like the third trimester was not easy. Also, I started dilating before, in week 36 or 35 and a half,
Mm-hmm.
which meant that I felt like their legs were sticking out. Like
Gonna
I
come
felt
out of you.
things were coming out.
Did you know
It
their
felt really,
names? Had you already selected their names before they were born?
I had an idea. You know how when you go to the gynecologist and you have twins, they refer to them as baby A and baby B.
Right.
And it's kind of impersonal. So Roberto and I were like, okay, we're going to call them water and earth. Bear
Oh,
with
that's
me.
beautiful.
It's beautiful. Because in Spanish, agua. So we were
Ah,
like, okay, agua and the other one, earth. So water and earth. So the one that was head down was water, and the one that was kind of upper here, and it was breech,
oh, you had
was
one and
earth.
one. Yin
One
and
on
yang.
one. Yeah, yin and yang, like in that exact position, yin and yang. Like
It is a
so
space-saving position for twins. Like if you only have a cramped space, it's kind of a sensible fit, a sensible way to hang out in there. Could you always feel like the different parts, knowing which one was water and which one was earth?
I think so. I mean, I would never know if I was right or not,
Yeah.
but I would
Okay.
think so. Water was head down from the very beginning. Like after week 20, he never moved. Like his head was down. And actually, when he was born, his little head looked like a little alien head.
A cone.
Like, yeah, like a cone head. And Mateo, he was breech, and his head was totally different shape. He was like a flat head, like a and I said to the chiropractor, why is his head that shape? And she said, well, basically because he was carrying all the organs.
Uh, on his head.
Yeah, on his head. Yeah, all of my organs were actually on top of his head. So their heads looked very different. But anyway,
Are
so
they identical?
no, they're fraternal.
Ah,
They're die.
oh, nice. Okay, totally separate everything.
Yeah, they're die. They're die
Dichorionic, and each one had its
and
own placenta, and each one had its own amniotic sac.
sac and his own, yeah, and amniotic sac, yeah. So it was a very safe pregnancy. Like every time I went to the doctor, my amniotic fluid was good. The guys both were growing at a very similar rate. Their position were good. I didn't know what were the complications that could happen because seriously, Dr. Berlin, I tried to find out information when I found out that I was pregnant. And there was so much info about how complicated it was a twin pregnancy and how all the things that could go wrong that I was like, I'm not going to go down this route because I was already, working really hard with my mind
Hmm.
not to play any games on me.
Yeah.
And I felt really well. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go with this feeling. And I know what it is to have like a really beautiful pregnancy.
Yeah. Your first birth, you wanted it to be in the hospital, but all natural, and you had a really beautiful experience. Now, anybody listening right now who might have twins, I would say probably half of them are going to be told that they can't even have a vaginal birth, let alone a natural birth. And the rest will be under a lot of, okay, maybe if X, Y, and Z happens, we'll give it a shot. It's not widely available in the obstetric community in the United States. You can find it. It's just more than often than not, you're going to have to look for it and push for it. Did you have a plan in mind for how you wanted to deliver the twins?
Yeah. I mean, I wanted a vaginal birth, two vaginal births. And that was the first conversation I had with this guy who I didn't know, the gynecologist, after he told me that there were going to be twins and that I wasn't going to run a marathon. I was like, okay, can you deliver? Are you willing to do vaginal births? And he said, absolutely. And I was like, okay, we can be friends. So,
That's awesome. Okay. Now, what
yeah.
about the fact that one was head up and one was head down? Was that a concern for either of you?
No. Well, no, I was like, if you tell me that you can deliver breech babies, I can do it. He said, look, normally doctors would prefer both babies to be head down, but as long as the first one is head down, everything else, I can go with. And I said, deal. So I talked to Agua, baby water, and I was like, you better stay down, head down all the way. And he did. So, yeah, so my doctor was pretty open. I mean, pretty chilled. He said, as long as the difference of weight isn't that big, most doctors prefer the big baby to be the first one to come out. But he was okay. In fact, my big baby was the second one,
Oh,
my
interesting.
bigger.
How different?
200 grams, less than half a pound difference. So it wasn't a huge difference. And it kept the same. Every time that we do like a scan, there wasn't any signal that one of them was growing faster than the other. They were pretty leveled up, like they were pretty similar.
Yeah.
And
Well, that's
so
great.
yeah, and he never used the word dangerous. 40 was never mentioned.
Your age.
Yeah, age was never mentioned. everything is going really well.
Yeah.
Keep doing whatever you're
Yeah.
doing.
It's kind of interesting. We have an episode of our podcast called Pregnancy Over 35 with Dr. Emiliano Chavira, and he's an OBGYN and an MFM. And he basically says every person has a clinical health profile, and on it there are a bunch of data points. One of them is your age, and it's the one that you can't change. It is what it is. But when you look at all the other data points, the more and more you have data points that are in the healthy or super healthy zone, the less the other points matter. So
Mm,
you're strong, you're fit, you're healthy, you're training for a marathon, you don't have diabetes, you don't have hypertension. So the age kind of just fades away, especially after you get out of the first trimester. So yeah, you're a strong, healthy person who's pregnant with twins. And I love your
mm,
doctor. I want your doctor to move to Los Angeles. So to be sure, your doctor was okay as long as baby A is head down and not substantially smaller than baby B.
that's
And then
right.
ideally baby B is also head down, but if not, you still give it a try. Going into labor, was that the position still?
That was the position still. And it was really funny because we talked about everything before birth. I had so many questions. He had the time and the patience. And, he was so accessible and he really was interested in me having all my questions answered.
I always say, what good is a
Um,
doctor with no patience?
yeah, well, there's so many of them out there. It's crazy, right? So I asked him, I said, okay, so what if baby A comes out? What happens to baby B who is breech? And he said, okay, well, there's several scenarios. There's one, which means that he doesn't turn and he kind of stays with his butt down. And I will have to, because he is bigger than baby A, the second one is bigger than baby A, heavier. I would have to do a maneuver that I stick my hand inside and I help the baby turn around. A gynecologist and OBGYN outside will be helping me doing that, like with your belly from the outside, helping me from the outside, not to allow the baby to come all the way up here, but like helping me keep the baby down. I think it's called the Leopold maneuver, right?
Yeah. But essentially, they would try to turn the baby head down, or they would
Head
just,
down. No, no,
okay,
no. He was gonna try to turn the baby head down, like sticking his hand inside me and then turning the baby head down. And the baby was still in his sack, and then put the baby in the right place so I could push him out. Or there was another possibility where once the baby A came out, baby B would sort of like turn,
naturally.
gravity naturally. And there was a final possibility, which was the one that we didn't want to happen, that the baby would get stuck. Like,
Transverse.
yeah, in that scenario, there would have, be the possibility of doing a C-section, an emergency C-section to get baby B out. And that's why so many women do not want to try vaginal birth when there's twins, because
Don't
there
want
is
one
a
on one.
yeah, one on one, and
I've
nobody
had two
wants that.
patients over the years that had one on one.
Oh, really? I
One of
mean,
them actually, I should have her on the podcast. She's talked about coming on. She says even if she had known it would have been one on one, she still would have done it that way.
oh, really?
Yeah, she was grateful to have the vaginal birth with the first one.
Yeah, I guess. No,
So
absolutely.
most people, when you say one on one, they're like, okay, I'll just do this or that, not both.
Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break and when we come back. We'll find out how your birth experience with these twins went. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're talking to Marianna Burelli. Okay, so you're at the end of a twin pregnancy, uncomfortable but ready. And baby A is head down, baby B is breech, and baby B is a little bit bigger than baby A. How does labor start?
Well, I was already 5 centimeters dilated,
Wow.
and
For how long?
for about
Oh,
3 days.
that's got to be weird walking around.
So
Open.
weird, literally. It looked like I was open. I mean, that's how I walked.
Uh,
You can imagine it. Not great, not very elegant. It really felt like I was kind of being split in half, slowly but surely.
wow.
I was so scared of going back home, Dr. Berlin. The last night I stayed, it was a Monday. I went to the gynecologist. I was like, okay, come on, tell me that we're ready. And he was like, no, you're 5 centimeters dilated, but because the uterus is so extended, but not because the labor has started yet.
Mm.
And I was like, oh my goodness. I mean, If you want, we can kind of start it, but the babies are perfect. And hold on a little longer. I was like, sure, I'm gonna hold on because I'm all into non-medicated, not little intervention, as little as possible.
Two
Go
questions. One
ahead.
is, where are you in the week count here? How many weeks are you?
36.5.
Okay, so almost on target there for the twins. And then also, I remember last time you had a doula and midwives, right?
Yeah,
In the hospital. Did you have a doula this time?
I had an incredible doula. I mean, yeah, I would have had Kata again, but I mean, we are in different countries right now.
Yeah, I remember you gave her the nickname Kata. Oh, so sweet.
Get
Okay.
yeah. I had an incredible doula and I was kept talking to her all the time. And I said to the doctor on Monday, I was like, Doctor, if I go home, is there a chance that my baby, once the contractions start, my baby's born in the car? I mean, because I'm terrified. I don't want to have a car birth. I really don't want to have that.
Kind of makes a
And he
better
said,
episode of the podcast in some ways.
I'm so sorry, Dr. Berlin.
It's okay. It's all about you.
Yeah. So I said, I don't know what to do. I don't want to go home because my house from the hospital was kind of like a good solid 25 minutes. And I was already 5 centimeters dilated. I was like, this can happen in 2 seconds. And he said, look, there is a hotel right across from the hospital. Many women do that. They spend the last night there and then when they're so close. So I was like, that's what we're doing. Because my bag was with me, everything was with me. So I stayed with my husband in a hotel across from the hospital.
Oh, interesting.
And
Were you
that
doing
night,
things to try to get labor started?
oh yeah, my doula was like, guys, we need to create some oxytocin.
Oh.
So watch stuff, watch really great stuff, laugh, comedy, get romantic, buy some chocolate, do that,
Is
eat spicy
romance
food.
a thing at 37 weeks with twins?
Absolutely not.
Okay, I just wonder.
I mean, we said nice things to each other and kind of kissed, but like neck down, you can't really do much, can you?
I hear you.
Yeah, you're just a big balloon. And 5 centimeters open, sort of dilated. Very weird. Don't recommend it. And yeah, eventually that night I started labor. It was the right move
Just
to
stay at the hotel
to stay at the hotel.
and have
And
chocolate.
at 6 in the morning, loads of chocolate. I mean, yeah, not good for the birth part, but loads of chocolate and spicy food. It was such a great night. And it was also the last night that we were just three of us, right? So it was a really romantic, sentimental last night for both of us before we met each other as parents of three,
That's really
you
special.
know? It was really beautiful. We wrote letters to each other. It was really, really special. We knew that the next day our lives were just about to change
For a long time.
intensely.
Yeah,
Yeah, for a
for
long
a long
time.
time. Oh, how did your
Yeah.
labor progress?
You know, different to what I thought, it was very slow at the beginning. I was actually embarrassed. I was like, Doctor, sorry. I mean, stayed in the hotel across from the hospital, and then my labor went in like really slowly. I was like, oh God, what's this? When is this gonna kick in? Started like from 6 to 12, it was like I had contractions, but they were really soft, really mild. I was like, come on. I wanted to get weird. Come on.
Wait, 6 to 12, are you talking now 6 in the morning till noon or when you went to the
6 in the
hotel?
morning till
Oh,
noon.
six in
Like
the morning.
nothing.
You're at the hospital now.
I was at the hospital like at 7,
Okay.
and I had like really mild contractions, and the doctor checked me, and he was like, "Well, it hasn't really started yet. Like, I know you want it, but..." And then at 12, something happened. Like things started getting, weird, like as we like them, and I started getting really strong contractions. However, because my water didn't break until right before birth, they never felt really intense. With Sienna, my labor started because my water broke. So it was really intense for 6 hours. With them, it was like, oh, I felt really good. Like the waves were coming in and out, but it wasn't as intense.
Was your plan to go unmedicated with the twins?
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that the doctor had to do was to open up how do you call it? For the epidural,
Oh,
like
just to
leaving,
place it?
place it. because if there was a point where they need to cut, that needed to be there already. So, like an easy access of the epidural. And I agreed, of course, because that was kind of one of the conditions for me to be able to have a vaginal birth.
Seems fair. Okay, so
Yeah.
labor is picking up and it's not as intense. The word for me that I like to use is productive,
Yeah.
but they could be productive even if they don't feel so strong.
Yeah. Absolutely. It was kind of progressing, but not as fast as I
And
would have
there's two
imagined.
sets of monitors,
No,
one for each
no,
baby, or
one for each baby. I had like a belt and I had like two monitors,
yeah.
one in each. I had two belts, but they were kind of putting them on and off because the babies, both of their heart rates were really good, like no worries whatsoever. And at some point, the whole thing started at 12 midday. And then at 6 o'clock, doctor comes, checks me. And my doula is, we're doing all these magical things. I'm sitting on the Mayan chair, I'm trying to connect with, this other place where babies are before they're born. And my husband has been such an incredible help, like he already knows. And suddenly the doctor comes in and I'm like, why don't you pop this? Why don't you help me accelerate this? And why don't you pop this bag? And he turns around and he says to me, you're a goddess. I'm not going to do anything. You're doing great. I'm going
Oh,
to have a coffee. So off he goes. And my doula says to me, do you want to have a deadline? And I turn around and I said to her, like, I'm not going to put myself any deadline. So I'm in this sort of place where you don't have any filter. And I kind of walk forward. And that point, when I walk forward, I feel that my water breaks.
oh wow.
In that, like 5 seconds after the doctor told me, you're a goddess, you're doing fine. I'm not going to accelerate anything. It's going to happen when it needs to happen. And yeah, it happened. And the moment my water broke, that was it. I was like, I need to push, I need to push, I need to push, I need to push. It was such an intense feeling and need, urge to just push. So they took me to the operation room because
That's part of the deal too.
that's part of the deal too,
Okay,
which I hated. But also, I kind of managed to get music into the operation room,
nice.
like speakers and lights down, dim lights. So we
Wow. I've never seen that in the OR, but they're not doing surgery. They're just catching a baby.
yeah,
So
they're
they're in
just
there
catching a
just
baby.
in case you need to turn up the lights and act quickly.
Exactly. They're just in there because, yeah, because the second baby, what he said to me is that normally the first one comes out really easily, and sometimes the second one gets complicated, gets stuck or whatever, and then they have to act quickly. But I said to him, like, in the meantime, while things are good, can we dim the lights and can we put some music? And then my doula recommended something that I recommend to everyone, and I'm really kind of gutted that I didn't do that for Sienna, to choose a song for each baby. So Rio had his own song when he was born, and Mateo, we changed the song when he was born. So each one of them have their own soundtrack of their
Wow.
birth,
I never heard
which
that
was
before, but that's such a great idea.
it's so beautiful. And I have the video, so you see them being born with their music in the background. So
Oh, that's so
so
special.
yeah. So at that point, the doctor, who already knows me by now, says, okay, Mariana, here is he puts an eye mask on top. He's like, we're gonna take you to the operation room, and the corridors have these horrible white lights. So I don't want you to come out of this beautiful zone. So he puts this eye mask on top of my eyes, kind of like it rolls me down the corridor. And really quickly, we get to the operation room, which is really kind of dark, and the music is playing. Seriously, so beautiful.
I
And
love
Rio
it.
comes out really quickly, like so quickly. So imagine the first baby's born, and I'm like, oh my God, my baby, Rio. I give him the welcome. I hold him, I do it skin to skin. And my husband cuts the umbilical cord after however long. And I'm in this middle of this romance with Rio. And my doula is like, we need to get on Mateo. And I'm like, oh, wow. Yeah, I have another child inside. That moment of okay, so by that point the lights were a little brighter, and Elias, who is also he's like you, not Elliot, but Elias says to me,
Close.
okay, Mariana, we're gonna do what I told you that we're gonna do. Mateo didn't turn, so we're gonna do a maneuver. And I'm in this sort of like, I'm drunk with oxytocin and all these happy hormones. So I go like, sure, go ahead. Like, I mean, so he stick his hand in and I feel all this movement going on. And at some point, suddenly like in my right pelvis, I feel something like a really intense piercing pain. So I'm like, "Ah." And the guy goes, sorry, that's Mateo's head. He got stuck there. So we need to pull up your leg. So he pushes my leg all the way up here. I feel the popping out of Mateo's head. The most painful part of the whole birth was that moment. And after minutes, yeah, I would say minutes, Mateo is in the right track, head down and ready to come out. So suddenly he goes like, okay, we can change the music. Mateo is coming out. Change the track. Mariana push. And 28 minutes later, Mateo was born head first. And they were both really well. They were breathing really well when they came out. They looked good. Everything was good.
Wow. That
Yeah.
is really special and very unique. Again, I think most people here would have a hard time finding a practitioner to support that kind of birth. I'm really glad you're able to have it and to share with us. I have a few more questions for you.
Let me just
How?
tell you one thing. I
Oh,
said to
yeah.
the doctor, because after the babies were born, I got taken to my room and the babies with me, and everything was really beautiful. And everybody would come into my room and say, like, oh, congratulations. Oh my God, I heard about your birth and about Dr. Charua's maneuver. You guys both rock. And they kept talking about what the doctor had done and what I had done, like as if it was something really, unique. And I mean, I felt pretty damn good for how things worked out. But I said to the doctor suddenly, I was like, okay, tell me, how many times have you done this? Because it seems like a big thing. He goes like between 30 and 40 in my whole career. I was like, oh, wow, that's not that many. And I said, did you learn this in medical school? And he replies, no, I learned it from the midwives in the indigenous women in a state called Chiapas in Mexico,
Oh,
from the
wow.
indigenous midwives. And I was like,
Uh,
I love you more
that's amazing.
today.
They don't do any trainings here, which is probably why these things are not so available here. Wow, that's extra incredible. Um, we don't have so much time left, but I want to find out, like, now raising twins, like, what is that like? What is it like to everything? I mean, having one kind of knocks your normal cycle off. What does having two do?
In twice. Yeah, it's complicated. Honestly, it is complicated. I'm not going to romanticize it. It's beautiful. But breastfeeding at the beginning was complicated, especially because before your milk comes down, you're feeding two babies with colostrum with drops. So what happened was that my boys dehydrated on the first day
Oh, wow.
because they
Yeah.
didn't get enough. So I had to help them with a little bit of formula for the first week. Also, the soccer sort of position of like breastfeeding two at the same time was very helpful. It took a minute to get used to because you're basically holding them like that, side to side. And, like they're learning to like, they're getting used to your nipple. So, yeah, it's tricky. And you don't have another hand, you only have two. So it gets complicated. But it's funny how you get used to everything. That's one thing about humans that is fascinating, and women that is absolutely
Moms in
fascinating.
particular.
Moms in particular. Also, you know what? It really helps when you know that it's not going to last so long.
Sure.
When you know that this hell time that I'm going through right now, the little hell tunnel, it's not going to be that long. I already know that it's not going to be that long because I've already passed it with Sienna. So knowing that, having that in the back of my head really helps my psyche. Because with Sienna, I was like, my life is over.
Yeah.
And then you realize that it's not. That
It's just beginning. Then, and Sienna's been queen of the palace for a while. Having two new ones in there must be a big adjustment for her.
yeah, it was. It was big. She said to me, because she wanted a sibling, a sister to be more precise, but
Oops.
two boys gay. And she said to me, like, Mama, I wanted it so badly that they sent us two. I was like, there you go, my baby. And then she said one night, she was like, I wanted this, but I didn't know that it was going to be, this way. I didn't know that I wasn't going to have time with you. And she said to me, you know how I feel? I feel behind. I'm getting a lot of that sort
Oh,
of stuff.
probably
Fortunately,
hard.
she's very mature and I'm able to talk to her and tell her that she's not behind, that we're all holding hands together and the boys need a lot of our attention, but sooner than later, they're going to be part of the pack and we're going to be able to, do everything together in a different way.
Yeah, she'll love it in a different way. But
Yeah.
once they're interacting with her better. Okay, so now they're 3 months old.
Yeah.
It's also a pivotal point. Are you exclusively breastfeeding them now that you stopped that formula after the first week?
Yeah.
Wow. I'm like in awe of you again. Okay, so I'm curious how the next year unfolds for you, but I'm really happy for you that you were able to, especially after all the kind of struggle and bad news pendulum had swung in one direction, that it swung at, equal but opposite in the giving direction and the joy direction. You deserve it. And it's just really heartwarming to hear your story and to talk to you again. Before we go, I want to talk about My Natural, which was the company you started right before the pandemic. Tell me about the products and how the company's going.
Yeah, that's my other baby.
The fourth.
The fourth. Yeah, Amai keeps growing. It's a company that we basically sell products that have to do with like shampoos, conditioners, and makeup removers, body creams, soaps that use zero plastic. So the whole idea of having Amai was to creating products that work well on your hair and on your skin, and that don't have any bottle behind. So, as in today, we've saved the planet about 1,260 something plastic bottles.
Oh, wow. How do you do it?
Mm, we make them all solid. They're like triangles, and the ingredients are slightly different. When you buy a bottle of shampoo, you buy 80% water and 20% whatever ingredients, right? We sell you the shampoo without the water. You put the water in your shower, and we sell you the ingredients, the actual ingredients that wash your hair or the actual ingredients that condition your hair. And the cream is great because the body cream that it's a triangle as well, and the moment you have contact with your skin and the heat that you produce makes the cream melt.
Oh, it sounds really
And
cool.
it's really great. It's doing really, really well. I think this is the future. I think we need to really take care of the planet because if we keep on doing things at this rate, I do not want to think of the future we're going to have to face or our children will have to face. So that's my gift. I have twin boys, but my gift is no bottles,
I love
you
it.
know?
Even for
Yeah.
them, no bottles because you
Even for them, don't bottle. Oh yeah, no bottles for
you're
them.
exclusive.
Mm.
That's amazing, Mariana. So tell me where we can find My online, and then in general, where can we find you online?
Amai, you can find it. We sell it in the States now online and in certain stores. It's Amai Natural, Amai Natural dot shop.
I like how
That's
you
our,
translated for us natural to natural.
yeah. Just making sure, it's
MyNatural.shop.
dot
AMAI.
shop, AMAI, natural dot shop. And you can find us in all of the stores of this amazing shop called Regrocery. It's a store that sells everything in bulk, like with no plastic, zero waste. And you can find it in LA. They have one in Ventura Boulevard. They have another one in Venice. They have another one in Highland Park. So you can find us in all of their stores. And yeah, and online, soon to be in Amazon, I believe, and in Mexico, you can find us everywhere. So we're doing really well, and I think this is the future. The good thing about Amai is that not only is vegan, cruelty-free, plastic-free, zero waste, the little triangles are wrapped with rice paper that is actually edible,
Oh,
if you really want to eat it. So the beautiful thing is that you finish using your bar and there's nothing left behind.
I'm gonna get
Um,
some.
get some.
I sure will.
I'll send you some, Dr. Berlin.
I'm happy to buy some and support. All right. What about you and all these projects that are coming up? How can we find you online?
You can find me on Instagram, Marianna Burelli. I don't have TikTok.
I don't have TikTok
I
either.
no, I just couldn't make that
I just
a
use the Little
reality.
Mints TikTok.
Yeah.
Instagram works fine. I will check you out over there as well.
Yeah.
Mariana, thank you again for coming back. Congratulations on all the success and new joy in your life. I hope it only continues.
Thank you so much, Dr. Berlin, for having me again here. I can't wait to visit you in LA when I get back.
Yes, tell me when you're here and I'll carve out a half a day for you.
Amazing.
At home, thanks for listening to the Informed Pregnancy Podcast. For more pregnancy and parenting information just like this, visit us online at informedpregnancy.com.
Doctor, give me the news. I got